Hey everybody. So first of all, apologies for not getting this video out earlier. I actually had this all set up to go much sooner, like weeks ago. But I mean, between real life stuff and just honestly a general lack of incentive to play the game, I just haven't felt like doing it. But I figure, might as well get out of the way now. So, I mean, there's been a lot of articles and talk about this already, but I mean, Anthem is a mess right now. Right? There's no sugarcoating it. It's in pretty bad shape, and there's a lot of doubt about whether or not Bioware will be able to fix it in time. I mean, I know like one of their recent, I think it was on Ben Erbo, I think put up on Twitter or something like that. Like they're thinking of like they're gonna gradually try to fix this over like the next 90 days or some nonsense like that. Like they don't have that kind of time. They really don't. I mean, the Division 2 has only been out for what, 2, maybe 3 weeks, and it's set the bar so frigging high for the looter genre. It's ridiculous. And like we're getting World Tier 5 this Friday as well, along with the new title base and Stronghold and the set gear. The first 3 sets are coming out. Like it's kicking ass and taking names like with a vengeance. I mean, it's a prime example of a sequel done right. And I mean, I'm sure Bungie's taking notice as well. Like they're not twiddling their thumbs. Like they're definitely probably going to step their game up. Meanwhile, EA and Bioware are like, no, we'll take our time with this. Like, no, guys, like, you need to fix the loot and the other problems now. I mean, the loot is the big one, but I'm gonna go over like the major problems that Anthem has. I'm trying to keep this video brief, but we'll see. But yeah, no, they cannot drag their heels on this. Anthem needs to get drastic fixes as soon as freaking possible. And the thing is, like, because there are a couple of major concerns. The first one, of course, is given EA's history. I mean, there's a very legitimate fear that despite the popularity of things like Dragon Age, like the investors might not be willing to take like a second AAA game from Bioware tanking. I mean, Andromeda left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and now you have Anthem, like it's the second big game in a row from Bioware that's just not like grossly underperforming. There's a very real, legitimate concern that EA might decide they've had enough and shut Bioware down. I mean, they shut down Westwood, they shut down Visceral. Like, they have a history of doing this, and that would really suck to lose Bioware to that nonsense. And the other thing is, and this is also why I wanted to get this video out sooner, and I apologize again, Anthem is not a bad game. Okay, well, like, straight up, I will say this right now, and, like, I hate EA with every fiber of my being. I detest them just like I detest Activision. But I mean, despite that, Anthem is a really fun experience when everything is working. Like the gameplay is unlike anything. It is so fluid, so much fun. But the core systems like the looting, like lack of character sheet, whatnot, like it's just mismanaged. Like it's poor. It reminds me too much of like early Destiny and early Division, and I think whereas like games like Warframe, Destiny, Division all got kind of like a grace period there, and you would think Anthem deserves that too, but I feel like after going through like this and like years like going way back like 2014, 2015, I think just way too many AAA games coming out that were just like bleh, horribly disappointing. Like people's tolerance for that is just hit rock bottom, and that's a big part of why Bioware does not have the luxury of taking their sweet time with this. So okay, so real quick, let's go the 3 core things that are like really dragging Anthem down right now are a horrible lack of content. Okay, because like you get to endgame right now, and there's free play, there's legendary contracts. They just added legendary missions, which are they're kind of like the heroic daily missions in Destiny, but not quite the same. And then you have like the 3 strongholds, but really I think it's only ever just like it was Tyrant Mine for a while, but I think people have wisened up that now like the best one to run is actually Heart of Rage, because it's actually pretty quick. And it has way better overall sources of loot to it, like because like you got like the 2 Furies, you have a Titan, there's multiple chests like the other ones. it right now it really is the best thing to run the farm right now. So there's the lack of content, which hopefully Bioware is going to address soon. We were supposed to get like a big seasonal thing at the end of March, never happened. And there's the other problem, which I would argue is the single biggest one, and it's kind of twofer. It's the itemization, so like the loot and how items are balanced and whatnot, and also enemy scaling. Like enemy scaling is really screwy. I mean, they made it a little better with that recent update where they upped the power level of masterworks and legendaries, so that your abilities don't lag behind so hard, because your rarity, like the power of your melee, your ultimate, and your and your combos is tied directly to your rarity level. So the lower it is, the harder it is to survive, to deal damage on the higher difficulties. But I mean, in general, the enemy scaling is just kind of out of whack, especially with proportion to the loot increases. Like GM 2 and 3 claim to have higher drop rates, but the enemy stats they're way out of proportion. And I see posts from people all the time, oh yeah, GM 2 and 3 are fine. Blah, blah, blah. No, they're not fine. They're really not. I mean, it's supposed to have like a scaling system similar to like Diablo 3's, like torment levels, but the problem is the rewards don't adequately scale up with the increase in difficulty, and as a result, it's still really optimal to just farm GM1 because it's so much faster than the other two modes. As opposed, like, what I mean? Like, basically, like, the greatly increased enemy health, does not account, like, the increased drop rate does not offset the massively increased enemy health and damage. It just doesn't. So, like, if you're really, unless you have, like, a really close group of 3 buddies, and you guys can rock GM3 consistently, stick to GM1 and just, like, spam the crap out of the Heart of Rage. And, like, again, as fun as the gameplay is, doing that ad nauseum, which is basically all we've had to do for, since launch now, that gets dull real fast. Like, as fun as the game is, like, spamming that same content and, basically, like basically playing the slot machine hoping for a drops is just not that exciting. As opposed to Division 2, where like you're constantly getting loot, the enemies are actually fun to fight, they're intelligent, they force you to switch up your tactics. And the last thing is that's really dragging Anthem down is that it doesn't have, like, it's just lacking in a lot of really key areas that are, quite frankly, just baffling. Oh, like, I'll give you a good example. Like, if you go to the Forge, which is where you go to customize your javelin and change your equipment and whatnot, you don't even have a basic character sheet. That shows you what your max armor and shields are, your resistances, your DPS, and so on and so forth. And like, this is from Bioware. Like, these guys made, like, RPGs are their thing. We're talking Mass Effect, Dragon Age, like Knights of the Old Republic. How the hell is something as basic as a character sheet, as a detailed character sheet, missing from this game? It makes no sense. Like, what the hell, BioWare? Oh. So, and then there's, like, the loading screens have gotten, I guess, maybe a little better. I've chalked out the personal experience, but I mean, yeah, there's too many. They've at least added some small tweaks here and there, which is nice. Like now you can, in Fort Tarsus at least, you can directly just hold the button to go right into the expedition menu. They're working on a way to go right to the Forge as well, I believe they said. And there's no longer a loading screen between going to the back and forth between the Forge, which is nice. So, I mean, the thing is, like, BioWare is not stupid, incompetent, probably, I would argue at this point, but not stupid. Like, they're aware of what's wrong with the game. They're just not acting fast enough on it, I think, for most people's liking, and really not, for the long-term health of the game either. Alright, so what all can they do about this? Well, for starters, they could take a page out of Bungie's, playbook and add in some, cool modifiers and whatnot. Like, how Destiny has, like, the Nightfalls, and then towards the end, I don't know if they're in Destiny 2 yet or not, so I kind of just lost all faith in that series at that point. But I remember at the end of year 3 with the first game, toward the end, They had like weekly rotating special raids where like the challenge raids, so you get like the really cool cosmetic gear and shit. Uh, yeah, so I mean, Anthem could really benefit from something like that. Not to mention the things like the strike specific loot. So like they need to, if the strongholds are going to be the main attraction to this game, other than the whatever like the cataclysms that they have coming, which are like the seasonal end game stuff, they need to do a better job of incentivizing people to actually like do the strongholds. Like having like the Elysian chests are a nice touch, but those are like a timed thing, and to be honest, grinding the keys is kind of annoying too. It still doesn't really fix the core problem of not having a real incentive to do each stronghold. Like, it is kind of neat how there is like already some distinction between them. Like the Tyrant Mine has a bunch of enemies in it. The Temple of Scar is almost exclusively close quarters and has an interesting boss at the end. And then the Heart of Rage just has like a bunch of really high rank enemies and honestly a friggin' derp easy boss ever since they nerfed the monitor. So there's a decent bit of distinction between them right there, so that's okay. But things like like stronghold specific loot, along with, I don't know, something, with other factors, like, again, like rotating modifiers for each week, so, have basically like a, again, like a Nightfall style thing, but for the strongholds. So, with, things like enemy shields are cranked up, or melee damage is jacked up, or certain elements and things like that. They also really need to, like, do a bit more for the brain dead AI and making them vary a bit. Like, for example, like, again, with the Tyrant Mine. So the whole thing with like the lore with that mission is that the Scars are harvesting the Scorpions to make acidic weapons and whatnot, right? Yet not a single Scar enemy throughout the entire level actually uses acid-based weapons. Well, how did they miss that? Like that's an obvious, cute little touch they could throw in. I mean, just as a default thing, I think they should, to make it more interesting. And while we're on the subject, I think that's something they need to do about the AI in general. I mean, the AI is honestly pretty brain dead, and I think that's why they compensate for that by just cranking up their stats, like their damage and health, when you raise the difficulty levels, and it's just not an interesting experience. Like, I think there's they should probably take a few hints out of Warframe, where you have like all kinds of elementals, like damage types and resistances, and like Anthem already has some of that. I like the 4 different elements and the combos, and there being different kinds of combos you can set up. That's pretty cool. I just think instead of straight up jacking up the enemy stats, they could do more interesting things, like give them different attacks on higher difficulties, or have like certain enemies be strong and weak against specific weapons and elements. Like maybe have the Scorpions be weak to things like shotgun attacks, or something like that. Because like, or have Scars be resistant to fire damage or something. I don't know, just anything like that. Just something other than just blindly cranking up their health and damages. It's just not good game design. Okay, so more things. So the biggest issue is, again, the items. Like, so I see this a lot everywhere, where people go on and on about how, it's RNG, you need to grind the game. No, like, okay, like, seriously, there is a reason that Diablo 3, which is now 7 years old, is still fun and is still relevant. I mean, granted, its numbers have dropped off significantly, especially now that the Division 2 is out and Borderlands 3 just got announced, which, holy crap, that looks amazing. But anyway, like, the guys at Blizzard, I mean, for all their faults, they understand, what makes games in a given genre. Like, they have an uncanny freaking knack for deciphering what makes games work and streamlining the hell out of that. And so in the case of the looter genre, again, people think that, like, just getting a legendary is a big, should be a huge big deal, which they're not entirely wrong. Like, it should be kind of a special thing to pick up a legendary, but that is not in and of itself like the goal at endgame for these looters. Like, no, that's and this is where Anthem really, really loses people, and rightly so, because it's nonsense. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that legendaries and masterworks, rain from the sky, like hitting a pinata, but they definitely don't drop nearly frequently enough, especially in the strongholds, which are supposed to be the premier content. Like, honestly, I think a good way to go about this would be once you're around, 600, 600 or above, like, basically when your rarity level actually turns to masterwork, you should just stop finding purples and blues altogether, and anything below masterwork altogether, at least from the chests and the bosses. It's fine if the random trash enemies, throughout drop the odd purple or blue here and there, so you can use that to craft your stuff, because you do still need to craft the materials for crafting consumables, and I imagine we're eventually going to get masterwork versions of those too. But anyway, like when you open up that chest at the end of a section, it should just be like just a barrage of masterworks, and possibly legendaries, with GM 2 and 3 having a much higher chance of that. Because the thing is, again, the grind is not the end game grind of these things is not about getting the items themselves. It's about getting that perfect roll. This is what, and this is why the Division 2 is so good in kicking ass, because it floods you with gear. You don't always get an upgrade. In fact, you'll probably very rarely get just what you're looking for, but that's what makes it fun. Because every time you get that, you get that nice. Diablo 3 and Division 2 both do this. You get a good balance between killing stuff and farming and getting loot, and then examining your loot and looking for whether you get upgrades or not. Whereas with Anthem, you're so starved for loot, and then like 99% of the time you do finally get that masterwork or legendary, and it's freaking garbage. And like worse yet, you can't even see what you get in Anthem until you finish a mission. Like, I'm okay with not being able to switch stuff. You have to like Warframe does this too, and it's cool. I don't mind it. Like, you can't actually see, look at everything and examine it until the very end. But it should at least tell you when you pick up an item what it is. So instead of just saying like, epic item, masterwork item, whatever, it should say masterwork assault rifle, masterwork component, so on. So you at least have an idea of what you got. So when you get to the end, you're like, oh sweet, I got, and then it just helps build a little bit more excitement that way. But so the goal though again is like the whole thing with these games is the actual grind and where you have good RNG or not is going for those those minute little differences on all your items, trying to get a perfect build going. That's what drives these games. That's what pushes people to keep going and going and going. It's not. Because, especially in the Anthem's case, because more so than any other looter I've ever seen, your performance is in 100% dependent on your gear, just about. I mean, yeah, player skill always accounts for something, but I mean, like, Diablo, Division, Destiny, even Destiny to an extent, right? Like, you have your passives and whatnot that you can pick and choose. Anthem has none of that. It is 100% gear based. What you have equipped determines what your javelin can do. So when you restrict the flow of loot the way Bioware has, it doesn't just kill incentive to play. It grossly restricts what your options, your gameplay options. It's not fun. Like, the goal should be getting like at the end of a stronghold, you should have just a whole ton of masterworks, and probably a handful of legendaries, especially on GM 2 and 3. Like, the drop rate on legendaries needs to go way up on those modes. Especially because you freaking need legendaries on GM3. Like, you cannot, like, Masterworks just simply do not cut it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, initially I thought the overall difficulty of Strongholds was kind of crappy, and I'm starting to change my mind on that. I think it's just the drop rates need to go up, like proportionately, and the inscriptions need to be averaged out a bit better. But the goal should be at the end of a thing, at the end of an expedition, going through your stuff, looking at and seeing if you got all the right inscriptions that you want. Not whether you got the item or not. It is about getting those god roll inscriptions, because again, it is the inscriptions that make or break an item. Not okay. The items, yes, you do need the items, like like you need your masterwork components for your health and whatnot. But it's the inscription, like especially on the weapons, it is the inscriptions that make or break them. Okay, because I've seen masterworks too. That like some have garbage stats and some have over like insane, disgusting things like plus 300% weapon damage. Like that's the kind of thing that makes or breaks the item. And when you only get like maybe 2-3 rolls after multiple chances at that, after multiple hours of gameplay, that's going to drive anybody away except for like the diehard fanboys who freaking don't know any better. Okay? Like, this is not like an MMORPG where you're paying a subscription and they need to milk you and keep you playing so like you have stuff like grind, like I'll give you an example. Like I subscribed to Final Fantasy 14. I'm trying to get my Eureka relic weapon right now for my Dragoon, and it's a heck of a tedious long grind, but that's okay because that's the game is built around that. It's supposed to take a while, and and this is like an end game thing that will last me for a good long while. Like it's not like same with the raid gear and all that stuff. It's all static rolls. It's all preset. There's no RNG involved in that. So so it's justified that the chase is long and tedious. And looters don't operate like that, with the exception of Warframe, because Warframe is a free-to-play game and it needs to kind of milk the player base a little bit, so that because the devs live or die based on people buying stuff. So. Versus Anthem, which is being put out by the second largest publisher in the industry. Like, that's the other weird thing, too. I mean, EA is massive. They have incredible resources. There's no excuse for Anthem to be this poor. Alright, so, let's see. Yeah, so the items need to drop way more often. Enemy scaling can be adjusted and whatnot. But they also need to adjust like some of the items themselves too. And kudos to Bioware, they actually did recently buff a lot of the masterwork abilities. I'm not a big fan of some of them, but overall, it's like it was a badly needed change. They could, like I said, they could still do more, but it was a major positive step in the right direction. I'll give you, because like one of the things that really bothered me for a while was like the Interceptor has one where it's like you pick up an ammo pack and it gives you bonus damage for like 5 seconds. Like, that's a joke. I forget if they increased the actual damage amount. I think they did a little bit, but they doubled the duration to 10 seconds, which is a lot. Like, it's still kind of weak, but it's a lot better. 10 seconds is a hell of a lot better than 5 seconds. Actually. And in case you guys are wondering, yes, Interceptor is my main. That's why I'm playing that in most of these clips. The one that actually bothers me the most, and I think where Bioware kind of missed the mark on that, and like there's other examples like this, but it's they recently buffed the Vengeance Matrix, which I believe before it would increase your damage a little. Yeah, it was when you got the low health, it would increase your damage by another 25%, I think, for 5 seconds, which was kind of crappy. And now they've changed it, I think, so it's like when you get low health, you get 50% reduced damage for 10 seconds, but that doesn't really... Like, the whole thing is, like, the whole theme of the item is that you take more damage, but you also deal a lot more, too. I mean, like, a better example of this would have been if you, like, when you're low health, period, you just have a permanent damage increase. Like that, so like you get that really cool risk-reward kind of balance. That's what I think they should have done with that. And they need to do more things with that. Like they could, I don't know if making legendaries like an even stronger version of those powers would be necessarily a great idea or not, but that's one thing they could definitely do. But in general, yeah, they could be a bit stronger. They need to introduce more of those kind of mods as well. They did add a bunch of universal ones, which was cool. Not necessarily new, they just finally added masterwork versions of them. But like in particular, like I'm surprised that the Ranger doesn't have more more unique components for things like reload speed, recoil, and whatnot, because it's billed as kind of the middle of the ground, heavy emphasis on gunplay. Javelin, and yet it doesn't have a whole lot of options to support that, which is weird. Alright. Sorry, just thumbing through my notes real quick here. Oh yeah, so there's other things too that they could do to improve the end game experience. Namely, like, and they have addressed this. They have said that they want to do something to make experience points more useful. I'm not like, because Diablo 3 has Paragon points, so like, it basically giving you an infinite grind. You keep getting EXP, it translates into Paragon points, which you then spend for extra stats. The Division 2, just every time you gain a level after the level cap, it just straight up gives you free loot. Like you get a field proficiency cache, which by default has 2 high-end items in it at 30, and if with the perk you buy at the base, you actually have a 50-50 chance of getting a 3rd bonus item, which is pretty sweet. Anthem just like it just gives you like more coins at the end of the week, which, yay. I mean, and don't get me wrong, the cosmetics are actually pretty cool, and it's nice that they're adding more of them now finally. But like, one thing they could do with the coins in particular is like they could be used to upgrade stuff. Like, okay, so Anthem has a blueprint system in it where you get an item, you grind out with it, and eventually it upgrades the blueprint for crafting, so you can keep crafting multiple versions of it, which is awesome. I think that's a really smart way of using embers and whatnot. But the problem is, again, because you don't get enough of them to really make that worth it. So real quick, what they could do with that, I think a good option would be to have crafting masterwork should have a chance to grant legendaries, but as well, they could take a page, like with coins and with embers and all this stuff, they could take a page out of the original Division. I mean, it's back in the sequel to an extent. I'm not the crafting stuff, but I mean, not the material upgrades, but the recalibration and optimization, I believe. Or no, sorry, recalibration is back. Optimization for some reason isn't back in the sequel, at least not yet. I don't know why. But it would work great it would really work well in Anthem. So how that would, the way I see this working for Anthem, that would be really smart. So yeah, you have and actually this would encourage people to buy more coins too. So it's a win-win for EA and the player base. Basically, have a system set up in Fort Tarsus. So say you found an item that you really want to keep, like, you got a legendary, maybe you got like a masterwork, and it has like the perfect freaking god rolls on it. It's just, unfortunately, it's just not a legendary. Well, if there was a system in place so that you could then spend like, a bunch of, like, a whole whack of masterwork embers and coins, like, it would have to be a pretty expensive process, okay? Like, to make this fair, it would have to really, really cost you. But it would be nice if there was an option to spend your embers and spend spend a hefty amount of coins to straight up upgrade that masterwork into a legendary. Keep all the existing inscriptions, just upgrade it to legendary status. I think that would be, and then the other thing they ought to do is have a system in place where you can also use your masterwork embers. Maybe as well of a coin cost for this as well. I don't know. It depends on how they want to balance that. But you should be able to pick at least one inscription on an item and then spend those embers to re-roll it, for another one. Because Diablo has this, the Division has this. Surprisingly, Destiny doesn't. But I mean, this is one. This just feels like something that should be standard in this game. And again, I was like the blueprint system is brilliant. Like, it's one of the few things in Anthem that Bioware really has pioneered and done extremely right. And I think in combination with being able to re-roll and upgrade items would give you a really well-balanced and encouraging end-game crafting system and help tremendously with the progression system. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So then the last little thing is I'm going to mention, because this video is running kind of long. I think I may have skipped over a few things. There's just a bunch of little things that Bioware could fix and throw in, like really basic stuff. Like, again, like the detailed character sheet would be nice. They really need to update the map in free play. Like, it's honestly kind of stupid that you can't set custom waypoints on your map, or that it doesn't show you, it doesn't just pinpoint show you on the map where currently active world events are taking place. Like that, like, you know, both those things would be really, really nice. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, minimum power level requirements as well. Like that really needs to be a thing that's enforced, especially like on Grandmaster. Like because I see a lot of posts lately about people getting pissed off because like they're basically coming, you know, queuing into GM 2 and 3 missions, like, you know, grossly underpowered, unable to do a thing, and just more or less sitting there leeching, you know, making it more difficult and putting all the work on everyone else and just getting free stuff at the end. Like, that needs to stop. Okay, like they need to put in baseline power requirements, you know, to do certain end game activities, just to put a stop to that. Yeah, it'd also be nice at the end of an expedition if you could just just mark stuff in your reward screen as junk right there, so that when you get back into Fort Tarsis, you can just hit one button, delete all at once, instead of sifting through them all one by one. That's not really a pressing issue. That's just a nice little quality of life thing they could do. Oh, that's right. Another thing I had considered a while back was using something similar to the Diablo 3's, you know, ancient primal system, but because of the way that actually wouldn't really work well in Anthem, because of the way power scaling works and like how critical it is. It's just no. That's all right. That's a bad idea. Yeah, they could probably tone down GM1 just a little bit as well. I do think it's kind of dumb that you have to wait till GM1 to get Masterwork components, considering how vital they are. Like they're pretty much essential. Without them, like you can get Masterwork stuff on normal and hard, but you won't find components though until you're on GM1, and you need those components to be able to survive the hits you're going to take. So I do think they need to add those Masterwork components into hard mode, just at a lower drop rate compared to GM1, so you can at least have a chance of getting a few to kind of better ease players into Grandmaster. You know, just little things to the progression. And I think that's gonna actually about cover it. Oh yeah, sorry. One last thing, I almost forgot. The luck stat needs to be abolished. Just straight up, take it out of the game. It is a stupid stat. Again, the guys at Blizzard realized this ages ago with Diablo 3 with Magic Find. They took it out of the game entirely, I think, except for the one item, the Nagel ring, because that's kind of an iconic thing. They left it on there on purpose, and instead they incorporated it into the base game itself. So what they did was, you know, that's when they added in that's when they readjusted all the scaling difficulties, like the torment levels and whatnot. So the more people you play with and the higher difficulty you are, you know, the game just naturally ramps up your EXP, gold, and, you know, and item finding just automatically, which is what they really should do with Anthem, because luck is a pointless garbage stat. I mean, I hate it. I hate any RPG that does this, where you have a stat that's there purely to affect drop rates, because there's always wild speculation. Whoops, knocked my microphone out. There's always wild speculation about how effective it really is, and the other thing is too, again, what they realized in Diablo 3 and why their big reason for taking it out was people were you'd be in a fight, and then they'd be switching to their Magic Find stuff, you know, toward when the monsters got low health, just, you know, to increase their drop chances, and it was screwing with the pacing of the game and everything, and it's just all around a bad idea, okay? And that's another thing they could do to incentivize strongholds. Like, strongholds should have just a basic modifier to them that increases that naturally pumps up the drop rate or the quality of drops. So just take it out of the items and just incorporate it into the game elsewhere, you know, in the background. It should not be a stat that you roll. And then crap, I actually had one more thing, and now I cannot remember it for the life of me. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry it ran a little long and got kind of ranty, like I said, meant to have this out sooner, just, I don't know, couldn't get around to it. Still really hoping Bioware can turn this sinking ship around, because I think Anthem has a lot of potential. You know, it could really be like a defining next-gen game if Bioware acts fast enough and, you know, it makes the changes that are needed. All right. Until next time, guys, you know, strong alone, stronger together.